He traded 1 bottle of whiskey. Now he's married to 2 alien sisters. The twin suns were low in the sky when Jack finally reached the edge of the alien market. His boots crunched on dry red sand. His shirt stuck to his back with sweat, and his water bottle had been empty since morning. He had only one thing left to trade. 1 bottle of earth whiskey, saved from a forgotten supply crate. It was old, strong, and sealed tight in glass, a treasure in this desert world, where alcohol was rare and water was gold. Jack stepped into the shade of the market stalls, his human face catching curious stares. Tall aliens with long necks and shimmering robes glanced at him, but no one smiled. This place was not made for humans, but he had gotten used to that. He moved to a small stall with glowing fruits and machine parts and waited for the merchant. Looking for fuel cells, Jack said slowly, showing his translator device. The alien behind the counter grunted. "Nothing you can afford, outsider." Jack reached into his pack and gently pulled out the whiskey bottle. The sun caught the amber liquid, making it shine like fire. The alien's eyes widened a little, then narrowed. "That," said a new voice, smooth and strange, "is not for trade." Jack turned and saw 2 alien women standing close. They were tall, with skin like pale lavender moonlight and eyes that glowed a deep silver. Their hair shimmered like soft metal strands, flowing behind them like veils. They wore matching robes of woven light thread, and their faces looked calm but intense. Jack blinked, confused. "Who are you?" The taller one stepped forward and said, "I am Lyra. She is Vela. We are daughters of the Flamesinger." "Okay," Jack said slowly. "Nice to meet you, but I really need fuel." Lyra pointed to the bottle in his hand. "That is not a drink. Not here. Not anymore," Vela added softly. "It is an offering of union." Before Jack could speak, both sisters knelt before him and placed their hands on the sand. Gasps came from the crowd around the stall. Whispers spread quickly. Jack looked around, unsure what he had just done. "What's happening?" he asked, stepping back. "You have offered the drink of earth to 2 daughters of the House of Stars," Lyra said, her voice steady. "By our law, it means one thing," Vela whispered. "You have chosen us as wives." Jack's eyes went wide. "No, wait, that's not Thai. Just wanted fuel," but it was too late. The crowd had already formed a circle, and drums had begun to beat. The merchant bowed, and a group of cloaked figures approached with glowing symbols in their hands. They painted Jack's forehead with orange dust, and Lyra took his arm gently. "You don't understand," Jack said quickly. "It's just whiskey. Just a trade. You offered it with your hand," Vela said softly. "You did not pour it. You did not drink it. You gave it away. That is sacred." They led him through the market toward a high stone gate. Alien banners flew above it, and more drums echoed from inside. Jack felt trapped, but also strangely calm. The sisters didn't look dangerous, just serious and almost excited. Inside the village, fire pits glowed, and food was being prepared. Children laughed and ran ahead, tossing flower petals into the air. Elders stood and nodded as the sisters brought Jack to the center of a circle. A golden tent had been prepared, with silk mats, glowing orbs, and 2 cups made of carved crystal. Jack was placed inside gently, and the flap closed behind him. He looked around, trying to breathe, trying to understand. The whiskey bottle was gone, taken somewhere. For the ritual. He rubbed his eyes, thinking, this has to be a mistake. The tent flap opened again, and the 2 sisters stepped inside. They had changed into even finer robes, embroidered with tiny stars. Their silver eyes locked onto his, and Lyra said quietly, "You have begun something ancient. Human," Vela added. "You may not understand now, but you will." Jack backed up slowly, his heart pounding. "I didn't mean to." Lyra touched his chest with her fingertips, and he felt a strange warmth. "No one ever means to change fate," she said, "but they do." Vela came close too, her voice barely above. A whisper, "You belong to us now." The lights dimmed, and outside, the tribe began to sing. Jack sat in silence, trapped in golden music, and two sets of glowing eyes staring at him. One bottle of whiskey had just changed everything. Jack barely slept. The strange tent shimmered, with soft glowing walls, and the scent of unfamiliar flowers hung heavy in the air. He kept replaying the moment over and over, the bottle, the kneeling, the words, "You belong to us now." He had come to this planet to trade fuel and scrap, not to marry into an alien tribe. But now he was sitting in the heart of their village, with two alien sisters watching him like he was some kind of gift from the stars. When morning came, the flap of the tent lifted quietly, and Lyra stepped in, holding a bowl of warm fruit stew. She smiled gently and sat beside him, her silver eyes calm and curious. "You did not run," she said softly. "We thought you might." Jack rubbed his face, still groggy. "I thought about it," he muttered, "but where would I go?" Moments later, Vela entered, carrying fresh clothes robes like theirs, woven from threads that shimmered like mist. Jack looked at them with disbelief. "You want me to wear that?" Vela tilted her head. "You are part of our bond now. Your clothing must show your place." Jack stood up, pacing. "Listen, I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm not your husband, okay?" "I didn't agree to anything." Lyra placed a hand on his arm, gentle but firm. "On our world, intention is sacred, but action is louder. You gave a gift meant only for unity. You sealed a path without words." He stepped back, frustrated. "On Earth, it's just whiskey. It doesn't mean anything." Vela stepped forward slowly, her voice almost sad. "Then why did it feel like a promise?" Before Jack could answer, a loud horn echoed outside the tent, followed by chants and singing. The sisters turned to him with a mix of excitement and seriousness. "It is time," Lyra said. "The elders will speak, and your joining must be blessed." Jack hesitated, but they were already guiding him outside. The village had gathered around a high stone platform where elders in jeweled robes stood beneath a wide sunshade. The crowd parted for them, whispering and staring as Jack walked barefoot beside the glowing sisters. He was brought before an ancient figure with bright green eyes and skin like cracked ivory. The elder spoke in a language Jack didn't understand, but the translator buzzed in his ear. "Human, you have crossed from wanderer to soulbound. The flame of unity is upon you, and our daughters have accepted the fire." Jack opened his mouth to speak, but stopped. The crowd was silent, watching, expecting. He looked at Lyra and Vela, and both of them were smiling, not out of pressure, not out of control. It was something else, something calm, like they had waited years for this, and finally received it. Jack sighed and nodded once. The elder raised a glowing crystal and touched it to Jack's forehead. Warmth spread across his skin, and the crowd cheered. Then the elder stepped aside, and two guards brought forward a strange box. Inside were silver rings carved with tiny moving symbols. Vela took one and gently slid it onto Jack's finger. Lyra followed, her hands shaking slightly, but her smile unbroken. Jack just stood there, dazed, wondering how he had become the center of this world so quickly. After the ceremony, the feast began. Tables were filled with food that glowed, steamed, or bubbled, and the music was loud and wild. Dancers moved through firelight, and alien children played games with glowing orbs. Jack sat with Lyra on one side and Vela on the other, feeling both overwhelmed and strangely peaceful. Vela leaned in and whispered, "You still wish to leave?" Jack looked at the sky, stars just starting to appear, and then down at the rings on his hand. "I don't know what I want," he said quietly, "but this is not what I planned." Lyra chuckled softly. "Good. The best stories never are." As night fell again, and the village danced and sang, Jack couldn't help but smile just a little. He was no longer just a trader passing through. He had stepped into something ancient, strange, and beautiful, and deep inside, he wondered, was this really fate, Or had one simple bottle truly changed his whole future? The air was thick with smoke and petals, and Jack's mind still spun from the events of the feast. He sat alone now, outside the golden tent, watching the tribe celebrate under moonlight. Drums echoed through the cliffs, fires flickered like stars on the ground, and the alien sky looked bigger than ever, somewhere behind him. Lyra and Vela were being prepared for the final part of the bonding ceremony, something the tribe only whispered about. He thought about running again, slipping away through the shadows, grabbing what little gear he had left, but every time he stood, his legs pulled him back down, like something unseen was anchoring him. Maybe it was guilt, maybe curiosity, or maybe the strange warmth that still pulsed in his chest where they touched him during the ritual. A soft hand suddenly landed on his shoulder. He turned quickly, only to find Vela standing beside him, her face lit by the fire, her eyes unusually quiet. She didn't speak right away, just looked at him. Then she said, "We are not forcing you, Jack, but the bond is already alive. Do you feel it?" Jack swallowed, unsure how to answer. He did feel something like a second heartbeat in his chest that didn't belong to him. He had blamed it on exhaustion, or maybe the strange food, but now he wasn't so sure. Vela held out her hand, not demanding, just open. "Come," she said. "The binding of fire and flesh cannot wait till dawn." Jack hesitated, then took her hand. It was warm, soft, and steady. They walked together past the sleeping children and the fading dancers, deeper into the woods behind the village. The path was lit by glowing vines and floating stones that pulsed softly, like living lanterns. Up ahead, Lyra waited by a circle of smooth white stones, each glowing with soft orange fire. Jack stepped into the circle and immediately felt the air shift. Something heavy and invisible pushed down on him, not pain, but pressure. The sisters took their places beside him and raised their hands. He followed slowly, copying their movements, confused but willing. Lyra whispered in their native tongue, and the flames around the circle flared higher. The heat didn't burn, but it wrapped around Jack's skin like a blanket of energy. Vela stepped close, placed her palm flat on his chest, and spoke one word: "Bind." A sharp warmth shot through Jack's body, and his knees nearly buckled. He saw flashes, memories not his, places he'd never been, stars from another galaxy, and two little girls playing in bluegrass. He gasped, and when he opened his eyes, he saw Vela's tears falling silently. Then Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand beside her sister's, and whispered the same word: "Bind." Another surge, this time colder, and filled with images of war, fire, and loneliness. Jack's head dropped forward, his breath caught in his throat. Then, suddenly, silence. No heat, no pressure, just the sound of his own heart. But then, it wasn't his heart alone. There were two other rhythms, steady and gentle, beating within him, echoing through his body like whispers in a canyon. The sisters lowered their hands and stepped back. Jack looked at them with wide eyes, his voice low and shaken. What did you do to me?" "You're one of us now," Lyra said gently, "not just in law, but in spirit. You'll feel our pain," Vela added, "and we will feel yours." Jack took a step back, almost tripping over one of the glowing stones. "You didn't ask me for this." Lyra's voice turned serious. "The bond began the moment you gave the gift. Tonight only completes what destiny already started." Jack shook his head, breathing hard. "This isn't marriage. This is something else. This is inside me." Vela's voice cracked. "Yes, and if we're ever hurt, you'll know. If we die, you'll feel it first." Jack stared at the flames surrounding the circle. He wasn't sure if this was love, magic, science, or madness. But he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was connected to them now, deeper than skin, deeper than blood. And as he turned to leave the circle, a shadow moved in the trees beyond. A distant scream cut through the silence. Then something dark leaped toward them from the forest edge, and Jack's instincts kicked in. He moved faster than he thought he could, grabbing a nearby torch and slamming it into the shape. It screamed. In return, a humanoid figure in black bone armor, snarling in a language Jack didn't understand. The sisters pulled him back as tribal guards came running from every direction. The figure vanished into the night. Lyra clutched Jack's hand, her breathing fast. "That was no thief," she whispered. "They came for you." Jack looked out into the trees, his chest burning again. Whatever this bond was, it had just made him a target, and he wasn't ready, but he'd have to be. The village didn't sleep that night. Guards circled the outer walls, torches lit every path, and whispering voices filled the air with tension. Jack sat by the sisters inside their tent, holding a long metal spear someone had forced into his hands. He wasn't a soldier, not a hero, just a man who once traded parts and tools across systems. But now, he was something else, bonded, hunted, and caught in a storm he never saw coming. Outside, Lyra was speaking with the tribal commander, her voice low and sharp. Vela sat beside Jack, wrapping bandages around a shallow cut on his arm from the ambush. She didn't speak at first, just stared at the wound, her fingers gentle, careful. Then she said softly, "They wanted to kill you before the bond fully set. That was their only chance." Jack looked at her, confused. "Who are they?" She hesitated, then answered, "Others who believe humans don't belong here. Those who think we broke the sacred order by choosing you." Jack laughed bitterly. "I didn't choose anything, remember? I gave you a bottle of whiskey." Vela smiled weakly. "Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." Lyra came back into the tent, her face tense, her robe stained with dust. "The elders say you must leave the village at sunrise," she said. "It's not safe here for you anymore, and if you stay, they'll come again." Jack stood up, the spear shaking in his hand. "So they want me gone now, after calling me their bonded male?" "No," Lyra said firmly. "Not the tribe. The council wants you hidden, not abandoned." Jack's mind raced. "So where do we go?" Vela pulled out a hand-drawn map from a hidden pocket in her robe. She laid it flat on the floor and pointed to a glowing cave symbol, deep in the mountains. "The Sanctuary of Flame, the place where our ancestors hid during the Dark Wars. No one dares follow us there," Lyra added, "and if they do, they'll burn before they reach the heart." Jack stared at the map, still struggling to believe this was real. He looked at the sisters, two beings from another world, tied to him by ancient magic, and now willing to flee with him into fire. The decision made itself. At dawn, they left quietly, cloaked and silent, slipping through hidden trails under gray morning light. Jack walked between the sisters, his body sore, his mind alert. Every shadow in the trees felt like a watcher, every bird call like a warning. For 3 days they traveled, climbing sharp cliffs, crossing narrow bridges made of roots and stone. The forest changed as they moved. Colors deepened, the air grew warmer. On the 4th night, they reached the edge of a great canyon. Below them, glowing rivers of orange light moved like veins through the rock, living fire, flowing without smoke. Vela whispered, "We're close." They descended the cliff path slowly, the heat rising around them. Jack felt sweat pouring down his back, but he also felt the strange energy again, the bond pulsing in his chest. The deeper they went, the more the sisters seemed to shine. Their skin reflected the fire like polished metal. Their eyes glowed with light from the canyon itself. At the bottom, they found a stone gate carved into the rock, shaped like a massive open hand. Symbols danced across the surface as the sisters stepped forward and placed their palms into the ancient stone. A deep hum filled the air, and the gate opened with a slow, trembling breath. Inside was not a cave, it was a city, hidden beneath the world, glowing with warmth and ancient power. Crystal towers stretched toward the ceiling, molten light pulsing through veins in the walls. Jack stared in awe, speechless. "This is where we were born," Lyra said quietly. "Not our bodies, but our line, our blood." They walked into the heart of the sanctuary, where a large pool of glowing liquid fire waited like a sleeping god. Above it hung 3 rings of stone, spinning slowly, casting shadows across the walls. Suddenly, the bond in Jack's chest surged, stronger than ever. He dropped to his knees, gasping for air, the heat too much, the energy overwhelming. Vela caught him and held his face in her hands. It's the flame core. It recognizes you now. It's choosing you. Lyra knelt beside them, her voice firm. You are not just bonded to us anymore. Jack, this place has marked you. He looked up, vision blurred, heart pounding. He didn't understand all of it, but one thing was clear: he was no longer just their husband. He was becoming something far greater, something this world hadn't seen in centuries, and far above them, in the shadows of the cliffs, cloaked figures watched. In silence, whispers passed between them. The human is awakening, one said. Then we kill him before he learns what he truly is. The fire inside the sanctuary never went out. Even while Jack slept, the walls pulsed with quiet heat. Like a heartbeat older than time, he lay on a bed carved from crystal stone, his skin warm, his thoughts heavy. He had dreamed of Earthove, quiet nights, broken ships, and empty skies. But now, every dream ended the same way, with silver eyes and whispered voices calling him chosen. Lyra and Vela stayed close, watching him like silent guardians. They no longer asked if he wished to leave. They could feel it too. Deep in their bonds, something inside Jack was shifting. In the heart chamber, the flame core glowed brighter each day. It responded to Jack's presence, its fire turning golden when he stood near. Even the elders, long hidden beneath the mountain, had begun to emerge, old ones with glowing tattoos and slow voices, bowing as Jack passed. You've been accepted by the fire, Lyra said one morning. It does not choose easily. Jack sat by the pool, staring into the dancing liquid light. I didn't come here to be anyone's symbol, he said. I just wanted to trade for fuel. Vela smiled gently. Destiny doesn't care what you want, Jack. It only waits for the right hand to move. Later that day, Jack began training with the sisters. They taught him their blade form's swift movements, made of balance and breath. He taught them how to shape traps from broken metal, how to wire alarms using scraps from his old gear. They sparred together, laughed together, and when one of them fell, the other 2 felt it. The bond wasn't just spiritual anymore, it was practical, living. When Jack cut his hand, Vela flinched. When Lyra strained her leg, Jack limped for hours without knowing why. But peace didn't last. One evening, while Jack tested a new perimeter sensor, he spotted something in the flames, a shadow, too still to be fire. He froze, reached for his blade, and stepped back silently. From the darkness, a figure emerged wearing the bone armor from the night of the attack. Another stepped beside it, then another. Soon, there were 6 of them, surrounding the entrance to the sanctuary. But they didn't attack. Not yet. They stood in silence, watching him. Jack returned to the central hall, breath tight in his chest. They've found us, he said. They're waiting. Lyra didn't blink. They want the core, and they want to end the bond. Vela's voice shook. They fear what we've become. Jack looked around the glowing chamber, the tall crystals, the firelit corridors. Then we don't wait. We fight. The next hours moved fast. The sanctuary transformed into a fortress. Old weapons were uncovered, blades made from cooled star metal, shields that hummed with trapped wind. The sisters wore ceremonial armor woven from silver thread and flame bone. And Jack, though he still wore half his earth gear, wrapped his arms with sacred red cloth. The elders blessed them with fire salt and chants that echoed like thunder through the stone. But when Jack stepped forward, the fire in the core rose so high it touched the ceiling. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Everyone could feel it. He was no longer just an outsider. He was their hope, their shield, their husband. Yes, but also something more. That night, the wind outside the canyon shifted. Dust rose in waves, and the 6 dark figures stepped into view again. But this time, Jack stood at the gate with both sisters at his side. their blades drawn, their bond glowing like a golden thread between them. Jack raised his voice into the firelit air. "You want the fire? Come and take it." The wind screamed in response, and the enemies began to move. The first blade struck just inches from Jack's neck. He blocked it with a reflex he didn't know he had, sparks flying as star metal clashed. The attacker hissed, bones cracking beneath dark armor. Another charged, but Lyra spun like flame, her blade slicing low and fast, cutting through shadow like it was silk. Vela moved beside Jack, every motion linked to his, their bond humming with raw heat. Every cut, every step, every dodge, they moved as one. Jack didn't think anymore. He felt Vela's focus, Lyra's anger, and his own rising storm of fear and fire. The sanctuary echoed with battle cries and blasts of molten energy. Elders fought like spirits from legend, bending heat and stone, hurling fire with bare hands. But the enemy wasn't weak. They had waited too long, prepared too well, and now they came not just for Jack but for the core itself. From the shadows came a seventh figure, taller than the others, his armor blackened with soot. He raised one hand, and the flames bent away from him. The fire dimmed, the air grew cold, and the warriors of the sanctuary stepped back in fear. Jack stared at the figure, and something deep in his chest twisted. This one wasn't here to fight. He was here to unmake. "You are not of this world." The figure spoke in a deep, cracking voice, "Yet you wear its crown." Jack gritted his teeth. "I never asked for a crown, but it chose you," the figure said, stepping forward. "And that cannot be allowed." The core behind Jack flared in defiance, golden and furious. The heat flooded his chest again, his arms glowed, his veins shimmered. Lyra grabbed his wrist, her eyes wide. "You're resonating with the flame too fast, too strong." Jack looked down at his hands, now lit like fire under glass. "I don't know what's happening," he whispered. "It's burning me from the inside." Vela stepped in front of him, blade raised, voice trembling. "Then we'll burn with you." The black-armored figure raised both arms now, drawing the heat from the room into a dark orb. Stone cracked, crystals dimmed, and the fire in the sanctuary turned pale. Then just before he released the energy, Jack stepped forward alone. He raised his arms, closed his eyes, and focused on the bond, not just with the sisters, but with the core, with the mountain, with the fire that had called him from the moment he arrived. In his mind, he saw Earth, he saw stars, he saw the bottle of whiskey, the dusty market. The moment it all began, one simple act, one gift, one thread that unraveled his whole life and rewrote it in flames. And then he opened his eyes. The fire exploded outward from him, not in destruction, but in light. The dark orb shattered in the enemy's hands, and the figure stumbled back, screaming. The 6 others dropped to their knees as the sanctuary roared. Jack fell to the ground, shaking, his hands smoking, his breath gone. Lyra rushed to him, lifting his head. Vela knelt beside her, pressing their foreheads together in silence. The black-armored leader crawled back toward the canyon's edge, his voice shaking. "It cannot be. The flame was never meant for a human." And then he vanished into the mist. The sanctuary fell silent. Only the crackle of fire remained. Elders gathered around, their faces awestruck, but Jack didn't hear them. He was half-conscious, his skin burning, his mind spinning, and through the pain, he felt one thing only: Lyra and Vela's hands holding his, refusing to let go. Later, as the fires settled and the healers came, one of the elders knelt by him and whispered, "You are no longer just bonded to them, young one. You are now part of the flame itself." Jack didn't reply. He couldn't. But deep inside, he knew what the old man meant. Whatever life he had before, it was gone, and something new, something powerful had taken its place. Jack woke to silence. Not empty silence, but deep, sacred stillness. The kind that wrapped around the soul like warm cloth. He was lying in the sanctuary's highest chamber, beneath a ceiling of glowing stone, shaped like 1,000 falling stars. The fire no longer roared, it pulsed gently now. Breathing with him, he blinked slowly, his body sore but whole. Every breath felt heavy, like carrying the weight of 2 lives. No, 3. Vela sat beside him, her fingers tangled with his, her face calm but her eyes red from crying. Lyra stood nearby, watching the flame wall as it shimmered in golden waves. When Jack stirred, both sisters rushed to him without a word. They didn't ask if he was all right, they felt it already. "You came back," Vela whispered, voice shaking with quiet joy. Jack tried to sit up, but Lyra stopped him gently. "You're still changing," she said. "The flame didn't just protect you. It became a part of you." He looked at his hands, and they were different now. Not glowing, not burning, but marked. Fine golden lines traced his veins like a map only the core could read. The elders entered quietly, one by one, and knelt. No speeches, no songs, just respect. Jack didn't know what to say. He hadn't come here to lead anyone, or save anything. He had traded a bottle of whiskey in a dusty market, and somehow ended up bonded to 2 alien sisters, reshaping an ancient fire. It was madness, but it was real. Later that day, the tribe gathered under the canyon sky. The ceremony was quiet, not for marriage, but for naming. Jack was no longer called outsider or traitor. He was named Coraltha, the flame that chose. The title didn't just belong to him, it belonged to all 3 of them, because without Lyra's strength, or Vela's heart, the fire would have stayed buried. Together, they were balance. Together, they were bonded beyond blood, beyond tradition, beyond planets. At night, when the stars opened like glowing wounds across the sky, Jack sat between the sisters on the stone balcony above the sanctuary. He asked softly, "Do you think the fire will ever leave me?" Lyra shook her head. "No, it chose you forever." Vela leaned her head on his shoulder. "And so did we." Jack smiled faintly. All this, for 1 bottle of whiskey. They laughed quietly together, not mocking, just amazed, because love, power, and destiny hadn't come to them through war or prophecy. It had come through a simple gift, freely given from above. A star fell, tracing fire across the sky, and deep below, the flame core glowed peacefully. It no longer needed to burn in rage or fear. It had found its guardians, 2 alien sisters, and the human they now called husband, forever.